Wausau police can only pull someone over if they have probable cause, meaning they have to see a car speeding, swerving, going through a red light. This is the mechanic boot Weinbrenner makes for the U.S. Air Force. It's got a hard toe to protect their feet from danger. Just to give you an idea of how bad it is, this branch alone should have 8 to 10 apples. To operate a car, you need a driver's license. And to get a driver's license, you need to pass a written and a driving test. It's the 83% humidity that's killing me. I certainly think I am a little overdressed for the weather in here. But plenty of people are also making their own food to eat during the game, and that's evident by the chips and dip aisle here at Triggs. Well, even though you and I are wishing for some spring-like weather, others say not so fast. If you look just behind me, you can see that the reservoir is covered in snow and ice, and that's the main problem. The cleanup crew out here is going through all of the items and separating them into 3 different categories. It takes just 60 seconds for a firefighter to suit up. The Wausau School District isn't taking any chances with this weather. They called and emailed parents earlier today before the school day even ended to let them know that classes would be canceled. But for those who stick to a schedule, it can be just as productive, if not more so, than going into the office.
Hey, Madeline, when you talk about annoying coworkers, you don't want to
I'm not talking about you guys.
Okay,
don't worry.
We're worried about that.
Lisa McKenzie has used just about everything, from marijuana to cocaine, meth, acid, speed, and OxyContin. But it wasn't until the Marshfield woman started using heroin that she realized she needed help fast. It was February of 2012, and Lisa McKenzie was deep in a drug-induced haze.
You feel nothing. It's euphoric. Everything is gone.
How often were you high?
Just about all day, every day.
The heroin addict had already lost custody of her 2 oldest children to drugs. Her youngest son, Hunter, had been in and out of foster care until 2 years ago. But none of that mattered if she couldn't get her fix.
I chose just about every single drug over all 3 of my children.
Until one day when someone turned her in at work.
The only time I ever thought about, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my child because of heroin, is when I lost my job and had to put myself in a treatment.
It was the first step toward recovery after 18 years of dependence and self-destruction. But just when she thought she was getting her life back on track.
The doctor came in, she asked my roommate to leave. She looked at me and she said, "Lisa, you have hepatitis C." And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Yes, you do. Did you share needles?" I said, "Never."
Lisa learned all of the works, like spoons and cotton. Not just needles can spread disease.
We have these things that are bottle caps. They're called cookers as well.
Scott Stokes is working to protect and educate drug users before it's too late, like Lisa's case. He works at Life Point in Wausau, a clean needle exchange program. People can come in, no questions asked, and turn in dirty materials for new ones. And they also check for hepatitis C.
Now we have this test that's just a finger stick, and it's just a drop of blood, and it gives them a result in 20 minutes.
So far this year, staff have given 55 tests. Nearly half have come back positive.
I mean, that's a real high positivity rate, and, you know, we're feeling like we're just scratching the surface.
Heroin use has already been linked to an outbreak in hepatitis C cases in Marathon, Portage, and Wood counties. And with access easier than ever, Lisa worries it's just a matter of time before those numbers go up.
People think that they're being so safe, and there's no safe way to do a drug. I don't care who you are. Because I was pretty sure I had it all figured out, and I'm dying.
A heavy burden that also weighs down on the innocent bystanders.
He knows that I have a blood disease. He knows that he needs to be tested also, because when he first came back from foster care, he played with one of my razor blades before I knew I had it.
And just to give you an idea of how serious this disease is, Lisa says her immune system is much weaker now. She can't eat without feeling excruciating pain, and she's fatigued all the time. She and I were actually supposed to meet for this story last week, but she got some bad news from her doctor that day. She found out she also has an autoimmune liver disease. The good news, Lisa has been sober now for 7 months and says she has a great support system to make sure she doesn't relapse. At 17, high school girls should be hanging out with friends, applying to colleges, and picking out a prom dress. But for 3 Wausau area teens, their chances of having that normal life were ruined in a matter of days.
One of the girls talked about having to go back to school after this all came out, and how she felt like everyone looked at her like she was a prostitute.
In March of 2011, 3 17-year-old girls were recruited by acquaintances they had met at a party to have sex for money with men in the area.
At that age, as a child, I don't think you understand the significance of what you're getting pulled into.
It's the first child sex trafficking case Marathon County's Deputy District Attorney Teresa Whetstone has prosecuted. But that doesn't mean it hasn't happened here before. Child sex trafficking wasn't considered a crime until 2008. It's now a Class C felony, and Whetstone has found it often mixes vulnerable teens with hardened criminals.
You have these adults who have had prior criminal records, who know what the system's all about, who know how to manipulate and intimidate, and once they're in, it's very hard to get out.
The traffickers told the girls to take naked pictures of themselves. Before they knew it, the photos were posted online. Backpage.com is the main website pimps and prostitutes use to advertise sexual services. This is the page for WSAW alone. More than 100 posts just since December. They say sexually suggestive things like, "Are you ready for real pleasure?" And the links offer explicit photos, contact information, and details about what each woman will do for money. The 3 girls in this WSAW case were featured on the website, even though they were underage at the time. Within minutes, calls came in from men who were interested, men who were just passing through town, men who lived a half hour away, and men who lived right down the street.
Once that first sex act occurred, they felt it was kind of a point of no return.
The girls earned $150 for having sex, but it cost them their self-esteem. Fortunately, police stumbled on the child sex trafficking after it had been going on for only 3 days. They were responding to a disturbance at one of the traffickers' homes when a victim told them what was going on.
She described how she was victimized. She was told certain things, quick money, and she really didn't think it through, and it affected her psychologically and physically.
One WSAW man, Hassan Al-Musawi, was convicted of using the girls' services. However, they told police they had had sex with around a dozen men.
We have such a caseload that it's hard keeping up with what we have.
The 3 17-year-old victims were also convicted of prostitution because under the law, they're considered adults. Doesn't that seem a little counterproductive, though, to charge the victim? Is that just...
You know, I have to say that I wasn't involved in that part of it.
I asked the Department of Justice whether those sold in trafficking cases should be charged with prostitution. They declined to comment. Police say 4 people are involved with operating the child prostitution ring. Nicole Riley has yet to plea. She's been accused of driving the girls to the various calls. Dominic West is still awaiting sentencing. The police report says he was responsible for recruiting 2 of the girls. Daryl Vaughn has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. He was involved in transporting the girls to hotel rooms and houses and collecting the money after they had sex. Barbie Metzger is facing the most serious charge and will spend 5 years in prison. Prosecutors say she played a major role in setting up the meetings with the Johns and posted the girls' pictures to Backpage.com.
Click, 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 I upload the pictures. 4 days later, I'm sitting in Marathon County Jail for child prostitution and child trafficking.
Before going to Tachita Correctional Facility to do her time, Barbie Metzger agreed to do an interview with me. Why did you do it? I mean, what would make you want to pimp out these young girls?
Well, I didn't know they were young. They were 18 in my eyes.
Metzger says she was swept in because she needed money, but says she was also a victim working as a prostitute herself and has been unfairly blamed for running the entire thing, something she says she's not even mentally capable of doing. Why do you think everyone's putting the blame on you?
Because I'm the oldest, but really on papers, I'm younger than these girls. I have bipolar, borderline personality disorder, paranoid schizophrenic tendencies, and I'm mentally 15 on paperwork.
Prosecutors disagreed. Metzger was ultimately found guilty of pimping the girls and running a place of prostitution. Metzger says she takes full responsibility for being involved at all.
It's wrong. Yes, it is wrong, but in the same aspect, you can't prevent it. It happens all over the place. It really does.
And to some degree, she's right. Child sex trafficking is everywhere in our community, around the country, and throughout the world. But law enforcement say there are ways to prevent it. Coming up tomorrow on News Channel 7 at 10, I'll have more on the impact sex trafficking can have on the rest of society and what the Department of Justice is doing to combat the problem. WSAW police can only pull someone over if they have probable cause, meaning they have to see a car speeding, swerving, going through a red light. That's called sobriety enforcement. Sobriety checkpoints would allow officers to pull someone over at random to see if they're driving impaired. Currently, that measure is against state statute, but some say it's time to give it a try. Every year, Wausau Police and the Marathon County Sheriff's deputies arrest around 1,000 people for being intoxicated behind the wheel.
It's so widespread that we need to start addressing, the impact.
Last week, a group of bills introduced to the state legislature aimed to curb drunk driving by increasing the penalties. Nowhere in them was mention of sobriety checkpoints. Wisconsin is one of just 12 states that doesn't allow checkpoints. Those opposed to it say it infringes on people's privacy. And taverns fear it could deter people from drinking, even if it is responsibly.
Well, I understand the theory behind sobriety checkpoints. I think what you do is you scare the social drinker.
But local law enforcement believe the practice could be a helpful tool in prevention and wouldn't require more staff because the resources they use to do the sobriety enforcement would be the same for the checkpoints.
I think it would really reduce the risk that the community has. What I'm appalled at is we have so many repeat arrests. There's times where we arrest somebody for their 6th, 7th, or 8th offense OWI. That's wrong.
In the meantime, Marathon County has taken other proactive steps to stop repeat offenders. Those with a 4th, 5th, or 6th offense are now eligible for a federal treatment program instead of prison time.
With the participants that have graduated, there's been no recidivism.
Timothy Hickman is one of those success stories. 2 years ago, he racked up 6 OWIs before getting his life back on track.
I always blamed others instead of myself. And I don't feel that way no more. All these classes and that helped out a lot.
Now he's encouraging friends to do the same.
I'm ready to move on, take that next step.
Ken Shanyod graduates from the program next week. He'll be the 7th person to do so.
If it wasn't for this program, I'd be in prison or dead. And prison isn't the answer because you go to prison, you come back out and you drink again and drive. This way you learn how to do it without,
And just a reminder for anyone who is out celebrating St. Patrick's Day this weekend, stay safe. There will certainly be more drinking. And Amy, that inevitably means more drunk driving.